Greetings, science fiction lovers, and welcome to another in my series on classic science fiction novels that have influenced me. Today, we are going to be talking about a novel that not only left a lasting impression on my younger self, but in my opinion, pioneered the modern vampire genre and is a landmark in science fiction, horror, and dystopian literature. I am, of course, referring to the 1954 novel I Am Legend by the great storyteller Richard Matheson. Born in New Jersey in 1926, Richard Burton Matheson passed away in 2013 at the age of 87. And it's not hyperbole to say that he is one of the most important and influential authors in modern genre literature. His work remains a cornerstone of modern speculative fiction, and he's always been one of my favourite authors. His career as novelist and screenwriter had numerous unforgettable highlights. I mean, who could forget the legendary Nightmare at 20,000 Feet episode of The Twilight Zone, or seminal works such as The Shrinking Man or Hell House, and movies such as his Poe arc works for American International Pictures, including House of Usher. I loved his ability to mix horror and science fiction, and we could discuss many of his works, but today we're going to focus on I Am Legend, one of the foremost examples of his ability to write a compelling tale while defying the bounds of individual genres. First published in 1954, the novel is set in the far future of 1976. And while Matheson may have got the year wrong, he certainly didn't miss the mark with many of the themes in the novel. Set in Los Angeles, this is a post-apocalyptic tale where a mysterious plague has wiped out much of humanity and transformed the remaining population into vampire-like creatures. Their protagonist, Robert Neville, appears to be the last uninfected human. Now, by day, Neville scavenges for supplies and hunts the infected while they are dormant, and by night he fortifies his home against their relentless assaults. The narrative chronicles Neville's daily struggles for survival, his scientific efforts to understand and possibly cure the plague, and his psychological descent as he grapples with loneliness, isolation, and despair. So it's a happy tale. This revamping of the vampire mythos from a supernatural to a scientific and biological phenomenon has laid the groundwork for countless modern vampire tales. And the cause of this plague is a bacterium spread by bats and mosquitoes. And Neville spends much of the novel investigating and experimenting, doing science behind the plague and looking for a possible cure. And these experiments are a fascinating part of the story, if pretty gruesome at times. Now, the undead survivors of the plague, or victims of the plague, more accurately, that Neville battles, conform to vampire stereotypes. They are pale-skinned, blood-sucking, and nocturnal. However, Neville comes to believe that some of their vampiric stereotypes, such as an aversion to garlic mirrors and crosses, are in fact them acting that way as that's how the victims believe they should react, being vampires, which is a fascinating thought indeed. Given that Neville believes himself to be alone as the only true human survivor, the book deals with the psychological impact on him, the loneliness, the despair, and all this despite him being a hardened survivor. So what does it mean to be a human in a world full of monsters? The thing I like so much about Matheson's writing, though, is that he's able to tackle these more esoteric psychological discussions in a straightforward way within a gripping and at times gruesome narrative. Eventually, Neville discovers that he's not alone as he comes across another apparent survivor, a woman called Ruth. However, the novel then takes an unexpected turn as it is revealed that Ruth is part of a group of living humans, as opposed to the undead vampires, who are infected but have learned to live with and adapt to a new life despite the infection. So Neville then has to grapple with the horrifying realization that he is the monster to them, having killed many of their group, and that they see him as the other, and indeed he is the legend of the title to them. And his version of humanity is perhaps the bygone era, and that they are the future of society and not him. So a bit of a twist in the tale, to be sure. Thanks to Matheson's crisp and efficient style, this story continues to seem fresh and not at all dated, despite being 70 years old. And it grapples with ideas and themes that are pretty relevant today, such as global pandemics and societal breakdown. It's a much loved novel by me, and I can't recommend it highly enough. It's a master story from a master storyteller. The novel has been adapted 3 times for the movie screen, the first being the 1964 Italian production The Last Man on Earth, starring the great Vincent Price, which Matheson wrote the screenplay for, but then substituted a pen name as he was not satisfied with the result, which I find interesting as it's probably the most faithful to the novel. Both 1971's The Omega Man and 2007's I Am Legend focused a little more on the style and action, but I do like all 3 movies though, and each has its own merits for sure, but that's a discussion for another day. Anyway, thanks very much for watching, and I hope you've enjoyed this glimpse into another science fiction classic. Please leave a like and a comment if you enjoyed it. Until next time, stay well and keep on rocking.